This game is intense, for real. As Dusk Falls is a thriller about a robbery gone wrong featuring a large cast of main playable characters with intense choices that have far-reaching consequences and multiple paths through the story. And when I say intense, I mean it. There were scenes where I felt like I held my breath for minutes at a time and impossible seeming choices where I was afraid of the potential outcomes if I chose poorly. The game feels like a show you'd binge on a streaming service. I don't mean that in a bad way, not in the way of saying, oh, this game is trying to be something that isn't a game or whatever. It's got an episodic narrative structure and the aforementioned large cast of characters, and it works really well for the kind of experience As Dusk Falls is aiming to deliver. The robbery gone wrong that has been prevalent in the game's trailers and marketing is only the first half of the game. In fact, aside from resolving a cliffhanger or two in the game's latter half, As Dusk Falls can be pretty evenly split in two. Even the game itself does this. The first 3 episodes of the game are collected into Book 1 and the second 3 into Book 2. Ostensibly, this is about 2 families. The Holts, a down-on-their-luck family native to Two Rock, Arizona, and Zoe's family, who are moving to St. Louis but forced to stop at the Desert Dream Motel after their car breaks down. The 2 families collide at the motel where the Holts get pinned down and take hostages while surrounded by the police. The unfolding narrative of As Dusk Falls is superb. You've got to make choices, some of them life or death, as flashbacks give context for the events of the game and provide key backstory and motivations for the cast. It's structured and paced really well, bolstered by some good character writing and excellent vocal performances across the board. And then once everything has gone down at the Desert Dream, As Dusk Falls goes somewhere not many thrillers go: the aftermath. Book 2 sees you follow the aftermath and the consequences of what took place. The intensity is dialed back, though you still make crucial choices as you navigate the fallout from the Desert Dream Massacre, as the game calls it. As Dusk Falls is a great thriller, sure, but it's also a game about trauma. Zoe's trauma, specifically, is at the center of the game's second half, being a child who has to cope with living through something terrible. It's a really great choice for the game to ask, how do the people who survived something traumatic deal with it afterward? This extends to the other characters too, such as Jay, who has a lot of familial trauma to unpack alongside the trauma caused by his role at the Desert Dream. It does make the second half feel less punchy than the first, and while I really enjoyed the game's slower, thoughtful second half, Book 1 does feel a lot more impactful and memorable. I was also a little disappointed that several characters more or less disappear by the midpoint, but it's choice and consequence that's at the front and center here. I only played through the game once, but there's a huge amount of potential forks in the story, as evidenced by the flowchart you see at the end of each episode that shows your path and all the possible paths not taken. Think Detroit Become Human, but without the painfully stupid and problematic writing. Lastly, I'd like to briefly touch on the game's unusual art style. As Dusk Falls plays out in an almost stop-motion way, with an art style reminiscent of a comic book. It gives the impression of flipping through the pages of a great graphic novel, which might not be for everyone, but definitely won me over. It works especially well during the more intense or intimate moments, allowing the game a few seconds to freeze on a moment or facial expression, and it's also used to create some truly memorable imagery. And that's my 3-minute review of As Dusk Falls. Thank you very much for watching.